Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Wednesday morning. I'm going to get straight into this one because I've got a lot to cover. So sticking with the Idaho 4 murders this morning, just a little bit of, shall we say, housekeeping before we get into this video. Bryan Kohberger is in court tomorrow for his status hearing. It's 8 a.m. Pacific time, which is 4 p.m. my time. I will be live to find out exactly what goes on at that court hearing. And then on Friday, I believe Richard Allen is in court, so the suspect in the Delphi murders. So I'll be live to cover that as well. So a lot going on this week. But in today's video, I want to try to piece together, with the help of the affidavit, but also an excellent programme that Court TV did last night. So I want to get into all of that. Picking up on what I talked about in yesterday's video, where an interview with news channel King 5, Steve Goncalves, Kaylee's dad, said that Bryan was close enough to touch the murder house's Wi-Fi. And I've had over 1,000 comments on that video, and thank you for the attention that video received. That really does help the channel. You know, leaving a comment, watching the video all the way through, liking the video, it really helps the channel. It gets videos out there in the algorithm. But I had a lot of comments saying maybe what Steve really meant was that he was so close to the house that he could have logged into their Wi-Fi, you know, if he'd had a password, or maybe it was an unsecured Wi-Fi connection, and then for whatever reason he was logging into this unsecured network. And yeah, I agree with you, that could be exactly what he meant. But it's interesting that the outlet The Insider has printed some comments from the Goncalves family attorney, Shannon Gray. It's talking about that there is no apparent motive as of yet. There was no motive in the affidavit. We don't need a motive. They don't need a motive to prosecute. It's just curious as to why, assuming that Bryan Kohberger is guilty, innocent till proven guilty in a court of law, but assuming it's him, then why did he do it? What is the reason? Why did he choose that house? Why those people? And I've speculated on that a lot. Lots of other people have speculated on that a lot. I'm sure that the cops have speculated on that a lot. But in this Insider article, it says authorities have not yet provided a motive for the killing of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. But the affidavit suggests that Kohberger may have been near the home where the victims were stabbed to death before. It says that he was in the area of the murder house 12 times before the murders. And on one occasion, when he was there for around an hour, as he was leaving, presumably as he was leaving, he got caught at a traffic stop by a cop who gave him an infraction for not wearing his seatbelt. So I think that was the 21st of August. So he could have been scoping out the area at that point. It's a little bit unclear as to when Kohberger actually went to live in Pullman, Washington, just 8 miles away from the murder scene. Probably sometime at the beginning of August, I would imagine, because that's when his course started, his criminology course, you know, his PhD course started in August. The new semester started in August. So students move into a new area, tend to move in maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks beforehand to orientate themselves. Not everyone does that. Some people just hit the ground running, move in, and then start the semester. But assuming that Kohberger had been there for maybe a couple of weeks before he got caught on that traffic stop, this video is going to be highly speculative, so speculation alert, but I am focusing on what Court TV has said, what the affidavit says, and grounding my speculation in what we actually know. I'm not going to go off down any rabbit holes in this video. I'm not. Let's imagine that he, for a long time wanted to commit a murder, that he was attracted to a murder, he was fascinated by it. And he actually moved to Washington all the way across the country, 2,500 miles away from his home in Pennsylvania. Maybe he wanted to step out on his own, and maybe his thoughts became darker and darker and darker. And whether it was a wholly conscious decision or not, moving 2,500 miles away gave him that impetus he needed to actually plan out these murders. So it does seem, 12 times in the area, apart from that one stop, which was like 10, 11, 11:30 at night, he would be there in the early hours of the morning, like through the night. And we know from neighbours that he's up all night, he's vacuuming, he's using the garbage disposal, he's pacing around his apartment. So he's somebody who is very much a night owl. So it stands to reason that if he's going scoping out Moscow as a potential place where he's going to commit those murders, he goes in the night when it's quiet, he goes in the night when he's most awake. He's there 12 times. But why them? Why that house? Why those victims? That's the thing that is intriguing, but also very disturbing. But what Sharon Gray said was that nobody in that house that they know about knew Kohberger. He's quoted here by saying no one knew of this guy at all. No one knew him. And no one reported being watched in the house. So if he was scoping out that property, he'd never been noticed. Not as far as we know, anyway. Not as far as we know. But if he was very, very close to that house, close enough for him to touch their Wi-Fi, whether he was actually logged in or not, we don't know. It seems that he's chosen that house for a specific reason. So I said early on in this case that if it was the house that was the target and not any one particular individual, then he's chosen it because it's quiet round the back. He's chosen it because it's in a cul-de-sac. He's chosen it because 5 young women live there. We're hearing from his classmates and his students that he was negative towards women, that he behaved in a strange way towards women. Brian Entin from News Nation reported yesterday that this is what he'd been told, that he was sometimes gruff and somewhat like aggressive even, like his attitude was aggressive, which is wholly consistent with what I've been saying about a potential profile of this killer. 11 days after the murders, I produced a profile that I've talked about a lot now, and it was the negative attitudes towards women, the misogyny, as well as other behavioural and practical characteristics of this killer. And the more we learn, the more I'm convinced that I was pretty much on the money with this profile. But yeah, that house would be one that he was perhaps watching. We know that on the 16th of August, police body cam shows that Kaylee spoke to a police officer about the noise, and they were just given a warning. But the police were there several times. They were there in September. So this house was a well-known party house. And the way it was so easy to get round the back, down the side of the house, round the back, you don't even have to go up that track that's on the other side of the house to park in the parking lot. And the fact that we know the timings now, that at 4:04 he was caught on a camera on Queen Road, and he was trying to park or turn around or something, and he went to the intersection of King and Queen Road to do a 3-point turn. That was at 4:04. So in that time, he had to find somewhere to park, get into the house, and then commit the murders, and seen speeding away from the neighbourhood at 4 20. I've always thought that he would have parked round the back, but maybe he didn't. Maybe he was so brazen, maybe he was so confident that he could get in and get out that he just parked at the front and then walked around to the back. The fact that he'd been there 12 times, he'd highlighted this house above all others. You know, this is a busy area, lots of students. You know, he's worked out that this is a house full of 5 women, not a house full of 5 guys. Kaylee's ex, Jack, lived in a house nearby with a bunch of male roommates. So it seems that he's targeted that house, but he's targeted a house with women. Something that Court TV have really picked up on is the fact that Kaylee also partied in Pullman, which is the town that Bryan lived in. And she frequented bars. Now, I don't know about the others. I don't know about Xana and Maddie. But she frequented the bars in Pullman, Washington. There's a bar there called the Cube. And it's a well-known bar. Lots of students go there. And what you can see on the wall, people can sign their names. You can see Kaylee, University of Idaho, Alpha Phi. Alpha Phi was her sorority. You can see here the Greek alphabet. Alpha, uppercase A, Phi is this symbol here. You see exactly that symbolism. So she's denoting that she's Alpha Phi. What if Bryan was drawn to Kaylee? So although the family, the attorney, are not aware of any connection, as in, you know, he was a friend of theirs, or even that they're aware that he's spoken to them before. What if he became aware of Kaylee? Because not only was he scoping out Moscow, you know, sufficiently far away from Pullman, not very far, but it's not literally on his doorstep. What if he was in that bar one night when Kaylee was there and he saw Kaylee? He saw that she's Alpha Phi. And if you remember what I talked about the other day, about this incel hero, Elliot Rodger, whose own killing spree, his 141-page manifesto that he emailed out to people before he slaughtered a number of people and then turned a gun on himself. He specifically talked about the Alpha Phi sorority as being the hottest girls in his college. What if Bryan somehow had endorsed this manifesto of Elliot Rodger, saw that Kaylee was a member of the Alpha Phi sorority? Perhaps he found out where she lived, unbeknownst to her, and oh look, she lives in Moscow. You know, he's scoping this place out as a possible murder scene. He finds out where she lives, and he starts scoping out that property specifically. And it's perfect. A house full of 5 young women. It's akin to Ted Bundy with his sorority killings. It's all starting to come together for me, just piecing together these little details. Now, something else that Court TV talked about, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, they went through the affidavit, the timings of him that night, November 13th, him leaving his home at 2:44, he was still at home, and then he sits for, I don't know, at 7-8 minutes in a parking lot just off Stadium Way in Nevada Street. That's where he turns his phone off. And then he goes the main route to Moscow. And he's caught on various surveillance cameras. And one thing that kind of confused me is he's picked up on a camera on Indian Hills Drive, which is kind of east of the murder scene, and it's kind of taking him out of his way a little bit. And then he makes his way onto Steiner. So, and then that then goes to King Road. But why did he go to Indian Hills Drive? And one of the things that the reporter says, that when she drove that route, Indian Hills Drive overlooks the police department. So it's not sufficiently close that he'd be caught on camera at the police department. He was caught on someone's surveillance anyway. But this was a location where he could just go and check out the police department. Maybe he'd been, scoping out the police department, working out their movements when they do patrols, and he'd just gone by there to make sure that all was well with the police department. This level of planning, if this is true, this level of planning is very clever. But yet he's committed these murders and left key pieces of information behind, such as the knife sheath with his DNA on it. That his planning has been very good, but yet his actual execution of the murders has been terrible. But thankfully it was, because that enabled the cops to catch him. For whatever reason, he decided that November 13th was the night. He went there, parked. Less than 15 minutes, he murdered 4 people. Perhaps his target, as Elliot Rodgers' teachings, if you can call it that, he's targeted Alpha Phi. It's perfect that Kaylee, Alpha Phi sorority girl, lives in this perfect house for a murder. He's able to get in. We don't know how he got in. We don't know whether he got in through the back sliding doors or whether he went another route. We don't know how he got in. We know how he got out, because Dylan saw him heading towards the back sliding doors, and then he could just go around the side and hop into his car and speed away at 4:20. But maybe him cruising around that kind of area east of King Road, maybe it really was him who was caught on surveillance at the gas station. Do you remember that, about 3:45? That seems that he was going round and round and round. Maybe checking on the police, maybe making sure that, the police were out of the way. Yeah, maybe it was him caught on camera at that gas station. But he was caught on numerous surveillance cameras. So all his scoping out and all of this stuff, the planning was good, but the actual execution of it, not realising that his phone was pinging left, right and centre in the days, weeks leading up to it, not realising just how many surveillance cameras he was caught on, has scuppered him, has meant that they've caught him very, very quickly. But, again, highly speculative, but Kaylee, Alpha Phi sorority girl, maybe he's assumed that they were all Alpha Phi sorority girls, and he's gone to kill Kaylee and Maddie. Now, the other thing is he seemed to know where they slept, that they were on the 3rd floor. Perhaps he went straight there, up to the 3rd floor, maybe because he has been round the back and he has been watching what bedrooms each person is in, and you can see the bedrooms clearly from the back of the house. He doesn't necessarily have ever had to been in the house to know where they slept. But then, as he came down the stairs, he encountered Xana, who was maybe eating her food. She just finished eating her food that she got from DoorDash. She'd been on TikTok at 4:12, and she wasn't meant to be there. She wasn't the target. It was the young blondes who he perceived as these hot Alpha Phi girls, akin to Elliot Rodger. Sorority girls akin to Ted Bundy. And Xana, unfortunately, wasn't a target, but she was there. And then that alerted Ethan. He wasn't meant to be there. Steve Goncalves has said that there was an almighty battle on the 2nd floor. Perhaps that was Xana and Ethan literally fighting for their lives. So it's all starting to come together, certainly in my mind. And what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Michelle. Hope you're well. I'll see you in the next video. It's goodbye from Miss Tillington and Miss Cassie Springer. Bye, guys.